But according to the Manda Omar, that even in the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda, they're going to argue because of the repetition of the psukim Asher Allah. So Bishlam Lamanda Omar loy makva, again, Hani Mini Rabbi Yehudi, Lamanda Omar makva Amani. So, but according to the opinion that says it's this ma'akiv, so who is the Baraisa here that says, who's the author of the Baraisa that says it's not ma'akiv? Tani mitzvah lahaniach. So you have to amend the Baraisa to say it's just a mitzvah to place it. But if you didn't place it, it's still kosher. Toshma mitzvah lahagril ulazvadus. The mitzvah is to do the goyro, means stick your hand in the box and pick up the thing, and to do vidu. Lo higril velo isvada. If he didn't do the goyro and he didn't do the vidui, kosher. It's still kosher. And if you're going to want to answer here as well, it doesn't mean the goyro. It means the hanacha. Well, that can't be because they aim a seifa. The seifa of that baraisa says, Reb Shimon Oimer, lo higril kosher, lo hisvade posel. So my lo higril. So what does it mean when he says lo higril kosher? If again we're translating the baraisa to mean, it doesn't mean doing the gorel, it means placing it. What? Michlad Reb Shimon sovar agrola ma'akva? So then what are you telling me, that Reb Shimon to do the agrola, not the hanocha, is going to ma'akiv? We have a vatanya meis echad mehen. Let's say you have two goats and one of them dies. Do you have to start the process off from the beginning? So Reb Shimon says no. Maybe chavero shelo bagro. You could get another goat and you can continue the process even though you don't do the goyro. Div Reb Shimon. So you see, Reb Shimon holds you don't need a hagrola. How can you say that it means meniach? It means hagrola. So the Gemara says no. Reb Shimon lo yoda ma'ikami rabbanon. Reb Shimon, it wasn't clear to him what the sheet of the chachamim were. Hachi karmeluhu. Hagrola mamish kamrisu. If when you say lo higril kosher and you refer to the hagrola itself, paligna leichel b'chada, then I argue with you regarding that point because I hold you don't need the hagrola. And hagrola de kamrito anu hanacha. And if when the Baraisa says lo higril kosher means you didn't do the hanacha, so paligna leichel b'tarti. So I argue on you on both of those cases because really I hold neither is ma'akiv. Not the hagrola, not the hanacha. Toshma, I'll bring you another proof. It says par ma'akiv is a so'ir. That means if you don't bring the par, let's say if you can't find a par, well then you don't do the ma'isa of the so'ir either. But so'ir ein ma'akiv is a par b'matona shebifnim. But if you don't have the so'ir, it's not ma'akev doing the avoda of the blood of the par in the Kodesh Kadoshim. So bishlam par ma'akev is a so'ir. So I understand that if you don't have the par, you don't do the so'ir. The i'akdeme l'so'ir mekame par lo aviv lo klum. Because there's an order that's established. First, you bring the par and you do the vidui. Then you bring the so'ir and you do the vidui. So if you're makdim the so'ir to the par, you didn't do anything. Now, but let's say you had the par, but you didn't have a so'ir. Ela so'ir ein ma'akiv is a par ma'ini. What do we mean that if you don't have the goat, it's not ma'akiv the avoid of the par? The agdim matonis the par ba'hechel mekami matonis the sor bifnim. Because at some point, you're going to give the blood in the Kodesh Kadoshim with the par. Then you're going to come out into the Heichal by the Mizbeach and give matonis there. Then you go in with the blood of the So'ir and do Kodesh Kadoshim and then the Heichal. Now, if we're talking about being Magdim, the Agdim matonis to par b'Heichal mikami matonis to sor bifnim, that you give the par's blood in the Heichal before you do the So'ir's blood in the Kodesh Kadoshim, That also wouldn't work because chukah ksiv behu. It says the word there chok, and every time it says the word chok, you got to do it that way, otherwise it's not good. Elalav, what must the brisa mean? The agdim matonis de par bifnim mikami agrola. That is, what you did is you brought the blood into the Kodesh Kodoshim of the par before you did the hagrola on the so'ir. That is, you do the hagrola on the so'ir before you normally give the matonis. But if you were magdim the matonis de par before the hagrola, that's what we mean, that it still works. But umidisidra lo ma'akva. So if the order is not ma'akiv, then ikar hagrola nani lo ma'akva. Then doing the hagrola certainly shouldn't be ma'akiv. The Gemara says lo. That's not the explanation of the brisa. The brisa means the agdim matonis de par b'mizbeach. You gifted the blood of the par on the mizbech and the heichal mikami matonis de sar beheichal. Prior to the giving the blood of the goat in the heichal. Rabbi Yehuda, and that's the sheet of Rabbi Yehuda. The Omar, Dvar manasim bevigdei lavan bachutz. All the various avodot that the Kohen Gadol does wearing the white clothing, not in the Kodesh Kodoshim, is lo ma'akvi. Freak the Gemara, v'habim matonis b'fnim ktani. The Brisa talked about matonis b'fnim, not the gifting of the blood on the outside. Elohamani Reb Shimon. The Omar hagrola lo ma'akva. The Brisa must be Reb Shimon, we already learned, holds that the act of the hagrola itself is not ma'akev. Even if the Kohen himself chooses which goat without doing the hagrola, it also works. But, says the Gemara, if you want to give you la'olam Rabbi Yehudi, we could still say the author of the Brisa is Rabbi Yehuda. So even though the Seder, in what order you do things, Enachanami, that may not be ma'akev, but hagrola miya ma'akva. But the act of the hagrola is ma'akev. Vazul tamay, and he's consistent. The Tanya, the pasuk says, "V'hasair asher Allah alav hagorala zazel yamod chai lifnei Hashem l'chaper alav l'shlach oto lazel midbar." When you do the goyrel, the sa'ir that was chosen to go lazazel remains alive until it's time to do whatever you have to do with it, to send it away. Mashma, that, for example, if it dies, you bring another one. You got to have a live goat. So it says, Yamot chai lifnei Hashem l'chaper alav. Ad mosa yezokak lamot chai. How long does it have to be alive? Ad shas matan tomei shel chavero. Until you do the kapara using the other goat LaHashem. Remember, you're going to shecht the sawyer LaHashem, and then you have to put the blood in the various places, in the Kodesh Kodoshim and on the Heichal. The goat Lazazel has to remain alive until that act. Then, if it dies, you can bring another. But if it dies before you finish that act, you'd have to start again with the two goats. Now, b'may kamiflagi, then what's the machlokes between Rabbi Shimon and Rabbi Yehuda? Can it tell you like the following price? It says lechaper, right? Vasoresh or Allah garala zel yamad chayif neshem lechaper. Now, what does chaper mean here? Does it mean vidui? Because we've seen before that the word kapara refers to vidui, and sometimes kapara refers to giving blood. So, the chaper, because kapara is domim akosim edaper. So the Tanakam of this brisa holds that when it says l'chaper, you got to wait until you mamish give the blood, because kapara refers to domim. L'cheinu oimer v'chilami kaper sakodesh. That's why the pasuk says when he finishes giving the blood in the kodesh, ma lahalam kaparas domim avkan b'kaparas domim div Rabbi Yehuda. So Rabbi Yehuda says that the goat has to stay alive until mamish the zrika sadam in the kodesh kadoshim in the heichal. Rabbi Shimon says no. Lechaper olav means b'chapor dvorim akosim medaber. You just have to, it has to stay alive until you do the vidui. Once you do the vidui, that's it. It doesn't have to be alive anymore. Then you can just replace it with another goat. Toshma, Shalu Talmidavis Rabbi Akiva. All of the small Marshi Yachzul Yamin. If the Kohen Gadol had, if the Lashem came out in his left hand, can he switch it and put it into his right hand? Amar lahen, al titnu makom laminin lirdos. Don't give the chance to the apikursim to hakan chachamim that they'd come up with all the laws that suit them. So perhaps what that means is technically you'd be allowed to do it, but don't give them a reason to mock the chachamim. Now, the Gemara understands taima the al titnu makom laminim lirdos. So he gave a but halavachi madrinan le. It seems make idea and you'd be allowed to do it. Well, how could that work? V'ha'amrit hagrola ma'akva. I thought you said the hagrola is ma'akev. You kivin to kvata small heich madrinan le. And since the goyrol happened so that the name of Hashem came into the left hand, how can you override the goyrol? Amarav achi kamri. Allah agar b'small marshi achzir lo v'l'se'iru liyamin. He doesn't mean put it in the other hand. He means show sort of to just show him like lamaris ayin that it looks like the sa'ir la'Hashem came up biyamin. So on that Rabbi Kiva said, and that avoids negating the goyrel in the first place. And that's why Rabbi Kiva said, technically you could do it lamaris ayin, but al titnu makom lamanim l'dos, but we don't do it because otherwise the meaning would have a reason to mock the chacham. Toshma, so ilu nemar es ha'sa'ir asher alav hagoyrol, but it doesn't say alav. But if it would have said alav, ayisi omer yanichenu alav, so it would say alav on it. So meaning you would think that you'd be chayav to actually place the girl on the goat. Talmud lomer Allah, whatever came up, kivin sha'ala shuvenu tzarich. That means once you have two goats, one to your right, one to your left. You put your hand in and it comes up liyamin, the name of Hashem, that's it. That shows that the goat on the right is LaHashem. He doesn't have to actually place it on the goat because it's Allah in his hand. Now, lama, mitzvah. If you're telling me that really meikra did, it's not required. It's just a mitzvah to do it. Michlal danach mitzvah namilo. So what are you going to tell me? That placing it, if you did place it, it's not a mitzvah? It has to be a mitzvah. The Torah talked about placing it. Elalav la'ake. Must be that at least the goyrel part, putting your hand in the box and pulling out the lot, that's ma'akev. Ushma minah hagrola ma'akva and hanachlo ma'akva. That ein chanami. The act of the hagrola choosing the lot, that is ma'akev. If you don't do it, it doesn't work. But placing it on the goat is not ma'akev. That's why this is the conclusion of Rav Yanai's opinion, why the Rambam paskin that ein chanami, the hagrola, if you didn't do it, it stops the whole process. But if you didn't meniach, it's not a problem. Now, Amar Rava says no raya from here because hachi kamar. This is how you have to understand the piece we just learned. Ilu nemar asher alav hayisi omer yanichenu alav at shashchita. Maybe the avamina would have been, you have to leave this goyrol on the goat until you shecht it. Talmud omer asher alav, no, you just place it and then that's it. And you don't have to leave it there. Kivin sha'ala shuvenu tzarich. So there's no raya yet from this Torshma, like we wanted to say, that Hanocha is not Ma'akev, no proof yet. Okay, I'll bring you another proof, Torshma. It says, V'hikriv Aharon et ha'sa'ir asher Allah alav ha'gorah Hashem. Aaron now has to shecht the sa'ir that the goyrel of Hashem came on it, v'asal chatas. That's what the pasuk says. Teaching me, ha-goyrel oiseh chatas, ve'en Hashem oiseh chatas. It's placing of the goyrel that made it a chatas. And for example, normally when we say harezu chatas, which I just use words when I usually make a chatas by our karbonos. Here, by Yom Kippur, just declaring it a chatas is not enough. The goyrel has to be placed on it to that's what makes it a chatas. And ein Hashem oseh chatas. And I might have thought through a kavachomer, not so. Shiyachol v'aloydinu uma b'makom shaloi kiddush hagoyrel. In places where doing a goyrel doesn't work, like for all korbanos chatas, if I ate dam and I have to bring a chatas, I don't have to do a goyrel. I just buy a goat. I buy a goat. I say arezu chatas, and that's it. So in places where the goyrel is not kaddish. Yet Kiddush Hashem, just with Amira alone, it works. Makom shekiddush hagoyrel. The situation where the goyrel is miskadesh it, like in the case of the Sawyer. Eino din she's kaddish Hashem. So certainly, I would think that that doing it by voice would also work. Talmud loimer v'asau chatas. Hagoyrel oiseh chatas, ve'en Hashem oiseh chatas. No. That's why we have a pasuk vasal chatas, that the goyrel makes it a chatas and the shame does not. So that we're going to say, who is this Barai? So it's going to be Rabbi Yehuda, but that we'll learn tomorrow. So again, the Daf Yomi tomorrow night, 9 o'clock.